welcome to The Case For, a Baseball Hall of Fame podcast. I'm your host, attorney and baseball fan extraordinaire Russell Christian. On each episode of this podcast, I examine a different Major League Baseball player's career and I make the case for whether I believe the player does or does not deserve enshrinement in the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. If you're someone who analyzes the hall-worthiness of baseball players like a surfer analyzes the waves, then this is the podcast for you. Friendly reminder, I've never played professional baseball. I'm just a fan. I'm also an attorney, and believe me when I say it's way more fun to discuss the pros and cons of a player's hall-worthiness than it is to spend a holiday weekend reviewing thousands of pages of medical records in preparation for a deposition the Tuesday morning after Memorial Day. Ah, yes, that was my Memorial Day weekend. That's the stuff they don't tell you about in law school. Before we start today's episode, I want to acknowledge two recent passings that have impacted the baseball community in this podcast. The first is the passing of Dave Parker. Today we learned of the passing of the Cobra. Dave, of course, was voted into the Hall of Fame this past winter and will be inducted into Cooperstown this summer. Dave was a 1978 National League MVP, won a World Series with the Pirates in 1979 and the A's in 1989, two-time batting champion, bravely fought Parkinson's disease. I want to send my thoughts and prayers to the family of Dave Parker. I took a moment as I prepared for this episode to record my thoughts about Dave Parker, and they're out as episode 28 of this podcast. So if you want to remember Dave Parker, you can listen to that episode and hear my thoughts about the passing of Dave Parker, as well as his life and his legacy. The other passing I wanted to acknowledge here is a close friend of mine, Jerry Travers from Atlanta, Georgia. Jerry, about 2 years ago, was diagnosed with ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, a disease that is something that the baseball community as a whole has collectively come together to fight. Major League Baseball does a lot of work to try to work with ALS charities to fight this disease. Before he passed, Jerry told me about an organization called Ales for ALS that works to fight this horrible disease. As this podcast progresses, I'm going to be sharing more information, but all I'll say right now is I've been in discussions with Ales for ALS. I've got some exciting events hopefully on the horizon, so stay tuned for details here. If you're interested in helping fight ALS, you can go look up Ales for ALS and stay tuned here. I'll be providing ways on this podcast that you can help out. So I want to send my thoughts and prayers also out to the family of my friend Jerry Travers. I was in Atlanta recently for his funeral. And speaking of Atlanta, a bit of good news I wanted to let everyone know. I will be attending the All-Star Game and the Home Run Derby that's going to be held at Truist Park in Atlanta in July. So if you see me there, say hi. I can't wait to go see the game, and I'll be reporting on some of the things I see on this podcast and some future episodes. And speaking of the Atlanta Braves and Truist Park, today's Superfan Shoutout is a very special Superfan Shoutout to a recent follower of the podcast's Twitter X account, and that's Dale Murphy. Yes, the two-time National League MVP and Braves legend himself now follows me on Twitter X. And in a really cool coincidence, literally the day after he started following my X account, I actually had the opportunity to run into Murph at the Braves-Dodgers game back in Atlanta on May 3rd. If you recall, there was a 3-hour rain delay. So I was hanging out with my brother and some friends inside out of the rain, and there he was. He stopped by the table to say hi to us and was, of course, as friendly as he could be, talk with us about baseball. And when I mentioned the podcast and my episode about him, if you haven't heard it, my first episode, of course, is about Dale Murphy and his Hall of Fame case. Dale, being the great Braves legend and teammate and humble individual, asked me, hey, what about Andrew Jones? Andrew was down in this little area too as well. I told him I have an episode about Andrew Jones, and of course I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Dale was nice enough to have a photo taken with me, which I posted on my Twitter X account. So Dale, it was great to see you, and superfan shout out to Dale Murphy himself. Thank you for following the podcast account. Thanks for sharing that picture of the two of us on Twitter, and you retweeted it. So thank you for doing that, giving the podcast a little attention. And really enjoyed chatting with you, Dale. And just throwing it out there. If you ever want to come onto the podcast, talk about baseball, open invite anytime. You're welcome. Just let me know. Thanks a lot. Today's episode comes to us as a suggestion from longtime fan of the pod, Pete Turner. And speaking of the Atlanta Braves, the subject of this episode, the 29th of this podcast, is former Braves pitcher and current Braves radio announcer on the Atlanta Braves radio network, 680 The Fan, Darren O'Day. This episode's a trilogy of sorts, the third part. I'll call it the bullpen trilogy. I've done recent episodes about John Franco, Jesse Orosco, and now Darren O'Day. Darren's career has a lot of similarities with Orosco in that Darren wasn't a starter or a closer, but a bona fide bullpen man. And as a result, he had a very similar career to Jesse, and he doesn't have the big counting stats of wins or saves, but nevertheless had a great career. Darren and Jesse are perhaps two of the finest examples of a great career of a bullpen pitcher, and it's a fun statistical analysis because the lack of wins or saves forces you to take a more Moneyball approach, an analytical approach to the careers to try to find the value in other stats beyond wins and saves. It's a fun exercise, and I really enjoyed the research on this episode. So, Pete, thanks for the suggestion, and without further ado, let's make the case for Darren O'Day. Darren O'Day was born October 22, 1982 in Jacksonville, Florida, where he attended Bishop Kenny High School, a private Catholic school which has produced several Major League Baseball players, including Todd Dunn, Kevin Witt, Matt Gamble, Travis Chapman, and Jonathan Papelbon, as well as Bishop Kenny class of 1970 graduate Billy Powell, the famed piano player of the rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd. Sadly, Billy passed away in 2009. If you recall, he was one of the several survivors of the 1977 plane crash that killed 6 people, including Skynyrd lead singer and main songwriter Ronnie Van Zant. Billy, of course, played the beautiful piano intro on Skynyrd's iconic song Freebird, and if you want to hear Billy's piano playing in all its glory, I highly recommend the version of Freebird from the live album One More from the Road, recorded live at Atlanta's Fox Theater in July 1976. The only live Skynyrd album to feature Ronnie Van Zant and the classic Skynyrd lineup from before the plane crash. But I digress, so I must be traveling on now. Fellow Bishop Kenny alumnus Darren O'Day was a member of the class of 2001, lettered in baseball his junior and senior years under head coach Bob West, and earned first-team All-First Coast Conference and third-team All-State honors. Darren was also chosen as Bishop Kenny's most valuable pitcher his senior year. Darren's high school baseball career was good enough to warrant the attention of the University of Florida coach Pat McMahon, and Darren made some serious swamp music playing Gator baseball from 2003 to 2006. As a freshman in 2003, Darren did not issue a walk in 13 straight appearances. As a sophomore in 2004, he earned second-team All-SEC honors and was a member of the SEC Academic Honor Roll. Darren finished his sophomore year with an 8-1 record in 59.2 innings and led the Gators in ERA and saves. His junior year in 2004, Darren earned academic all-district recognition for the second year in a row and posted a team-low 2.87 earned run average and 34 relief appearances for the Gators. That season, Darren did not allow a run in 8.1 innings of work during the College World Series. In his senior year at UF, in 2006, Darren appeared in 33 games and posted the lowest ERA in the team for the third consecutive year. When he finished at the University of Florida, he was second all-time in appearances, fourth all-time in saves, tied for 7th in victories, and tied for 9th in ERA in Gator history. A standout in the classroom as well, the animal biology major earned academic All-District 3 recognition for the third straight time and became the 4th University of Florida baseball player to achieve academic All-America status when he earned third-team honors from ESPN, the magazine. Darren was also Florida's nominee for the prestigious H. Boyd McWhorter SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year Award and was selected as the SEC Pitcher of the Week on February 20th after saving all 3 victories as the Gators swept Miami, Florida, and Coral Gables for the first time in school history. Darren was also selected to the SEC Good Works team, which highlights an athlete from each school who gives back to the community in superior service efforts. Darren's college playing days were good enough to earn the attention of Major League scouts, and the day after Darren's college baseball career finished, he signed a contract with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Darren split the 2006 season in rookie ball, pitching between the Cedar Rapids Colonels in Iowa and the Orem Owls. That's Owls with a Z, O-W-L-Z. I love that name. The Orem Owls in Utah, where he posted a 2.63 earned run average in 31 games for both squads. He continued to climb the ranks in 2007 with the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes in California in the Advanced A-League and Little Rock's Arkansas Travelers in Double-A. Between these two teams, Darren finished with a 7-4 record, 2.53 earned run average, and 48 strikeouts in 53.1 innings. He also pitched in the Arizona Fall League in 2007, posting a 2.38 ERA in 10 games, good enough to earn him a promotion to the AAA Salt Lake Bees in 2008, where Darren posted a 2-2 record with a 3.27 ERA and 30 strikeouts and 33 innings pitched. Darren's success in the minor leagues was rewarded with a call-up to the Angels in 2008, where Darren pitched in 43.1 innings over 30 games, striking out 29 and posting a 4.57 ERA. And an interesting twist on the business side of baseball, the New York Mets actually selected Darren as part of the Rule 5 draft on December 11, 2008. For those of you unfamiliar, the Rule 5 draft occurs every year at the baseball winter meetings, and it's a bit complicated, but the short explanation is that it's a way for teams to draft prospects and minor leaguers from other teams. And whether or not the players are available or not for the Rule 5 draft depends on some of the nuances of the team's roster. Admittedly, I'm not very well versed in the nuances of the Rule 5 draft, but if you're interested in learning more about the Rule 5 draft and how it works, I highly recommend checking out the YouTube video on the topic by Kelly Franco, aka 3 Inning Fan, on her YouTube account. Kelly, is a fellow attorney, baseball and attorney and baseball fan extraordinaire, one of the several attorney baseball fans extraordinaires out there, including myself. And she consistently puts out great videos on baseball-related topics. She has a really good video explaining what the Rule 5 draft is and how it works. She does a better job explaining it than I will, so rather than explain it here, I'll just post a link on my Twitter X account to her video. So shout out to Kelly. She always puts out great baseball content, and her video about how the Rule 5 draft works is really good. So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning more about the Rule 5 draft. After pitching for the Angels in 2008, Darren was selected by the Mets in the December 2008 Rule 5 draft, only to be designated for assignment by the Mets 2 weeks into the 2009 season. Darren appeared in only 3 innings over 4 games for the New York Mets. Sadly, Darren's brief stint with the Mets was overshadowed by a tragedy in his personal life when Darren learned on April 9, 2009, just hours before making his Mets debut in Cincinnati, that his close friend and teammate in the 2008 Angels, fellow pitcher Nick Adenhart, was killed in a car crash in Fullerton, California. According to an ESPN article by Adam Rubin, Darren had just sent Nick a text message the night before congratulating Nick for pitching 6 scoreless innings with the Angels. Once Darren learned what happened, he was understandably shaken up and struggled on the mound that day after inheriting 2 runners from Oliver Perez in the 5th inning at the Great American Ballpark. And with Darren's second pitch, he hit Edwin Encarnacion to load the bases, then 2 batters later gave up a 2-run single to Paul Janisch. Just as an aside, that had to have been a tough day for Darren. My heart goes out to him. His friend Nick passed away. He's out there on the mound. He's trying to make a roster spot. That had to have been just a horribly stressful day, a stressful experience for Darren. So, heart goes out to him. Darren ended up making only 3 more relief appearances for the Mets, and he was eventually DFA'd by the Mets. But out of this tragedy came an opportunity, as Darren was claimed by the Texas Rangers on April 22nd, 2009. He made his Ranger debut that night against the Toronto Blue Jays, literally just minutes after arriving to the stadium from the airport. In fact, there's a story there. He got to the stadium in such a hurry. He actually didn't have a uniform. Had to wear another teammate's jersey while he was pitching. Darren eventually settled in that 2009 season, and in 64 games for the Texas Rangers, he posted a microscopic 1.94 ERA with 54 strikeouts and 55.2 innings. Darren continued his success with Texas in 2010, appearing in a career-high 72 games, posting a 2.03 ERA with 45 strikeouts and 62 innings. Darren also got his first taste of postseason play, pitching well in the 2010 ALDS against Tampa Bay, striking out 4 in 2 innings, although he struggled a bit in the 2010 ALCS and World Series, posting 13.50 ERAs in both series. Unfortunately, Darren faced setbacks of another kind in 2011 when a pair of injuries limited him to only 16 games. Darren suffered a partial tear in his left hip in April, then upon his return struggled with right shoulder inflammation in August, and as a result he did not pitch in the 2011 postseason, thus unceremoniously ending Darren's stint with the Texas Rangers. Darren was then claimed off waivers, and again, if you want explanation for waivers and how all this stuff works, definitely check out 3 Inning Fan. She's got great videos about how some of the business end of baseball works. Darren was claimed off waivers by the Baltimore Orioles in November 2011, and during that 2012 season became the primary setup man for the Orioles and enjoyed one of the best seasons of his career. He went 7-1 with a 2.28 ERA and 69 strikeouts in 67 innings. He also had an opportunity to exercise the demons of those last 2 playoff series with the Rangers, and in the 2012 AL Wildcard Series, Darren pitched fabulously for the Orioles against his former team, the Texas Rangers, appearing in 2 innings, allowing only 1 hit and no runs. In the 2012 ALDS against the New York Yankees, Darren appeared in 5 innings over 4 games, allowing 0 hits and only 1 walk with 4 strikeouts. 2012 would mark the beginning of a 7-year stretch with the Baltimore Orioles, which is the most memorable of Darren's career. And as a result, in terms of his playing days, I think the Orioles are the team with which Darren's most closely associated. Darren thrived in this setup man position. He posted 5 consecutive seasons between 2012 and 2016 with a winning record and 4 seasons with an ERA of 2.28 or lower, including 2 seasons with an ERA below 2.0. In 2014, he posted a 1.70 ERA and 68.2 innings, and in 2015, he posted a microscopic 1.52 ERA with 82 strikeouts and 65.1 innings, and his success was rewarded by his selection to the 2015 American League All-Star team. During Darren's 7 years with the Baltimore Orioles between 2012 and 2018, he appeared in 374.1 innings over 391 games, amassing a 28-14 record with a 2.40 ERA and 424 strikeouts and an 11.3 WAR, or wins above replacement. And this is including his 2018 season, which was not the best of Darren's career, one in which he posted a 3.60 ERA and an 0-2 record. So if we take Darren's prime years of 2012 and between 2012 and 2017 and put those into context, let me just make a little comparison here. Just indulge me here, humor me a bit. During that 2012 to 2017 span, these are Darren's stats. He had 354.1 innings pitched, 397 strikeouts, a 2.34 ERA, and a 28-12 record. Now, hear me out here. Just follow me along on this journey. Here's how that same span stacks up with starters, well-known starters, who have pitched similar inning totals in one season. Let's start with Nolan Ryan. Before you say, whoa, are you comparing Darren O'Day to Nolan Ryan? Just hear me out. Nolan Ryan put up 2 seasons of 300 or more innings pitched. In 1974, the Ryan Express pitched 332.2 innings, striking out 367 and posting an ERA of 2.89 and a 22-16 record. In 1973, Ryan pitched 326 innings, striking out an MLB record 383 with a 2.87 ERA and then posting a 21-16 record. So again, just to compare, Darren's stats over a 354.1 inning span was 397 strikeouts, 2.34 ERA, and a 28-12 record. In an interesting coincidence, there's actually one season, only one season in MLB history, in which a pitcher pitched exactly 354.1 innings, the same amount as Darren over that span between 2012 and 2017. That season belongs to none other than Jumbo McGinnis, who hurled exactly 354.1 innings in 1884 for the St. Louis Browns of the American Association. Old Jumbo finished that season with a 24-16 record, a 2.84 ERA, and 141 strikeouts. So Darren had a better record, ERA, and strikeout total in that 354.1 inning span than good old Jumbo. Now, for what it's worth, Old Jumbo's not a Hall of Famer, but was one of the earlier stars in baseball during the 19th century, and an interesting character. After his career, he took a job as a glassblower and was an MLB umpire as well. I threw in this comp just because I thought it was interesting that there was a pitcher who pitched the exact same number of innings in one season as Darren did during the peak span of his career. But if we're going to compare that span to another Hall of Famer, in addition to Nolan Ryan, I'd also like to compare it to the 1914 campaign of Hall of Famer Grover Alexander, who hurled 355 innings for the Philadelphia Phillies, amassing a 27-15 record that season, nearly identical to Darren's 28-12 record, and had a nearly identical 2.38 ERA, but only 214 strikeouts, 183 less than Darren during that span. Grover, of course, is considered one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and that 1914 season has been ranked by many as one of the top pitching seasons of all time, and certainly one of the top 5 seasons of his career. Now, I've compared, before you bite my head off here, slow down. Let me just, I hear you. Let me get into it. I've compared Darren's stats over his peak period of his career to various starters who've gone the same or similar innings over one season. Of course, yes, I have to say, before everyone just screams at me, yes, I realize there is a huge difference between a starter hurling all of those innings over the course of one season and a relief pitcher amassing those totals 1 or 2 innings at a time over the course of multiple seasons. And Darren's case was a span between 2012 and 2017. So yes, don't bite my head off. I realize there is a difference in pitching all those innings in one season, spreading it out over a number of years. So before I get hate mail and Twitter trolls and people calling me names on the internet saying I'm an idiot that doesn't know ball, that's my favorite troll comment. You see that on Twitter. You're an idiot that doesn't know ball. Okay. Just, that's the insult du jour of Twitter trolls. But let me just say now, with all due respect to Darren O'Day, I am not saying he is a better pitcher than Nolan Ryan or Grover Alexander. I am not comparing a length of time over the course of multiple seasons to being the same thing as pitching every 4 days with a sore arm over the course of one season. I'm just saying, if we're analyzing Darren O'Day's career, you look at, this peak period he had over 354.1 innings. All I'm saying is that Darren's peak span during that period compares favorably to great all-time pitchers who had similar innings pitch span during some of the peaks of their career. So I'm not, trying to say that Darren's better than Nolan Ryan or better than Grover Alexander. I'm just saying, hey, don't sleep on Darren O'Day. If you hear his name and say, why is Russell doing an episode about Darren O'Day, a bullpen guy? Because he was pretty good. And during the course of the peak of his career, he put up some really good numbers. During that stretch of his career, he put up numbers that compare favorably to some of the greats of the game who pitched, similar spans of innings. That's all I'm trying to say. So all good things must come to an end, of course, and Darren's peak years with the Orioles came to an end in the 2018 season when Darren appeared in only 20 games before undergoing season-ending surgery on his left hamstring. Then on July 31st, 2018, in a move that would have ramifications for Darren's post-playing career, Darren was traded to the Atlanta Braves, where he would injure his forearm in 2019 during spring training, which delayed his Braves debut until September of that season, although Darren pitched well in 8 games, posting a 1.69 ERA. He also appeared in 2 innings over 4 games during the 2019 NLDS against the St. Louis Cardinals, striking out 2 and giving up just 1 hit and not allowing any runs. Now, for all of you Braves fans out there, I have to mention Darren's fine performance in the 2019 NLDS because otherwise I have nothing good to say about that series. This is, of course, the series that, as Braves fans, this is like Voldemort for us. We don't speak of this series. We certainly don't ever speak of Game 5, in which the Cardinals scored 10 runs in the first inning. In Darren's defense, he did pitch 1 inning in that game, struck out 2, and didn't allow a hit or a run, so he did his part. That game was so bad that catcher Brian McCann literally announced his retirement after the game. He probably had it planned already, but if he made a playoff run, maybe he'd stick around another year if there's something exciting. But he saw the 10 runs in the first inning and literally said, I'm done. I retire. Anyway, I digress. Darren's regular and postseason outings in 2019 were good enough to earn Darren a 1-year contract in the offseason with the Braves. and he made the most of it in limited action in 2020, the COVID-shortened season. He went 4-0 with a 1.10 ERA. Wow. And 22 strikeouts over 16.1 innings. In only 1.2 innings pitched in the 2020 Wild Card and Divisional Series, Darren did not allow any runs, although his final postseason outing in the 2020 NLCS against the Dodgers, he did give up 2 hits and 2 earned runs in only 0.2 innings pitched. The Braves declined their club option on Darren's contract after the season, opting to pay his $500,000 buyout, at which point Darren became a free agent and ultimately signed a 1-year deal with the New York Yankees, but injuries limited him to only 12 games, and in July, he underwent season-ending surgery on his left hamstring. And one more move, which again had implications for Darren's post-playing career, the Braves signed Darren in 2021 to a minor league contract, and in April he was selected to the Braves' 2022 opening day roster. Darren pitched 28 games that final season in 2022, going 2-2 with a 4.15 ERA and 26 strikeouts and 21.2 innings pitched. In his post-playing career, as I mentioned before, Darren O'Day is, of course, best known as the color man for the Braves radio, and I love listening to Darren. He always provides interesting anecdotes and insights into his playing career. I think he's one of the better announcers in the game, period, in my opinion. Certainly one of the better former players that go on to announce. So I always like listening to Darren. Do his stats make him a Hall of Famer, though? Let's break down the stats here. In 15 Major League Baseball seasons, Darren posted a 42-21 record, appearing in 644 games and 609 innings. During that span, he struck out 637 batters and allowed 458 hits and 172 walks. Darren's career ERA was 2.59, and while Baseball Reference doesn't track or count, so to speak, career ERA leaders with less than 1,000 innings pitched, just for comparison's sake, there's actually a pitcher with an exact ERA, career ERA of 2.59. That's Russ Ford, who's ranked 55th all time. The aforementioned Grover Alexander has an ERA of 2.560, just 0.03 points lower than Darren. Darren's career ERA is actually lower than Cy Young himself. Cy Young's career ERA is 2.627, although in all fairness, again, before you bite my head off and you jump all over me, Cy Young pitched 7,356 innings in his career, the all-time mark, of course, in Major League Baseball history, and approximately 6,700 more innings than Darren. So before you bite my head off and say, I said that Darren was just as good as Cy, all I'm saying is that their ERAs were about the same. Yes, I understand Cy Young pitched almost 7,000 innings, more than Darren, so had a few more chances to get his ERA knocked. And yes, that just shows you how good Cy Young is. But all I'm just saying is, look, Darren had a shorter career. I established this at the beginning as a bullpen guy. He's not getting the wins. He's not getting the saves. He doesn't have the high amount of innings. But in those innings, he had a really good ERA. And if that ERA were to count, if he had over 1,000 innings, he'd be up there among the all-time leaders. So, I'm not going to get into it, but there's a lot of Hall of Famers with career ERAs higher than Darren. Although, again, in all fairness, a lot of them are starters, and they logged considerably more innings. But, again, before you send me hate mail saying that I accused, Darren of being better than so-and-so or Cy Young or whatever, I'm just saying, look, small sample size, 609 innings pitched, but Darren pitched very well in those innings. And, again, it's a smaller sample size, but his career ERA is very good, comparable or better than that of, some of the great pitchers. I guess by analogy, I'd say here, look, if we were examining the career of a player that was like primarily a pinch hitter, guy off the bench, if they had a career batting average like 400 or something, even if it's like only 100 at-bats, that's really good. You can't sit there and say, well, he wasn't a good player. I'm like, well, he did his job, batted 400, even though it was only like 100 at-bats or something like that. So I'm not, again, saying Darren is better than Cy Young or whatever, but in the small sample size of opportunities that he had, he pitched very well. What about analytics? Darren's career WAR is 17.4, and his strikeout per 9 rate is 9.4. Because of his role primarily as a middle reliever and setup man, Darren only had 21 saves in his career. It's kind of a similar conversation we had in my episode about Jesse Orosco, who, he did have some years as a closer, but was primarily kind of a setup man, middle reliever, bullpen guy. Although, He did get some saves at the beginning of his career. But so for this reason, I think Darren and Jesse's careers are interesting ones to study because, again, you don't have the high win or save totals. You're forced to sort of look in between the lines at what they did in the innings pitched. I'm going to throw this comp up on my Twitter X account from StatHead. It's a direct comp between Darren O'Day and Jesse Orozco. In terms of the WAR, Darren's got 17.4. Jesse's got 23.2. So Jesse's higher, but I mean, not that much more. Jesse, of course, pitched in way more games, almost twice the amount of games as Darren. And as I mentioned on my Jesse Orozco episode, Jesse's the all-time leader in games pitched for a pitcher. Jesse had about twice as many innings pitched. Darren has a better win-loss percentage, 42 and 21, and then Jesse's 87 to 80. Darren has a better ERA, 2.59. Jesse's is 3.16. Darren has a better ERA plus, 167 as opposed to 126. Jesse has about twice as many strikeouts, but in terms of the analyticals, Darren has a better K percentage and walk percentage. So, the analytics, again, Darren did a pretty good job in the innings he had. Comparing these two, what stands out is the innings pitched in the games for Jesse. Jesse's the all-time leader in games pitched for a pitcher. Now, what about other Hall of Famers? If you heard my comp of Darren's 354.1 innings and comparing that to guys who pitched one season, fine. Let's look at Darren and how his career stacks up with like some Hall of Fame relief pitchers. I'm going to throw these comps up on my Twitter X. I compared Darren to Bruce Sutter and Lee Smith. In terms of the WAR, again, Darren's at 17.4, Bruce Sutter's at 24, Lee Smith's at 28.9, so Lee's about 10 points higher. That's a considerable jump, but Bruce Sutter's only a few points higher in the WAR. Darren has the best win-loss percentage of the three. He has the lowest ERA, he has the best ERA plus, and the best K percentage. So again, small sample size, but he does well. What about some potential future Hall of Famers? And again, don't at me if you don't think these guys are future Hall of Famers, but Kenley Jansen and Craig Kimbrell. I mean, we can get into the debate on whether or not they're... I think Kenley's going to get in the Hall of Fame. Craig, I think he'll probably get in. He may have a borderline. Kind of fell off the cliff at the end there. Kenley's still kind of pitching strong, but nevertheless, Hall of Fame caliber pitchers that, whose careers overlap with Darren, pitch at the same time. How does Darren stack up with Kenley and Craig? Kenley's WAR is 21.9 and Craig's is 22.3. So, especially Kenley, only a few points higher than Darren. And again, the win-loss percentage, Darren has the best. He has a better ERA than Kenley Jansen. He has the exact same ERA as Craig Kimbrell, 2.59. But he has the highest ERA plus of the three. So anyway, I'll throw that up on the Twitter X account. Again, I'm not saying Darren is better than Kenley Jansen or better than Craig Kimbrell. I'm just saying when you stack all three of these guys, and when you see it in front of you, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's like, it's not crazy. It's not crazy to put him in a category to say, how does he stack up against these guys? I think he stacks up very well. Again, I don't think this necessarily puts Darren in the Hall of Fame discussion, but again, just saying, when he stacks up against two of the preeminent closers of his era, he stacks up very well. So, speaking of this adjusted ERA plus, Darren's adjusted ERA plus is 167. And again, Baseball Reference doesn't really count pitchers with less than 1,000 innings. But if Darren did have 1,000 innings, if he maintained that 167 ERA plus, it would be the second best all-time behind Mariano Rivera. If you really want to mess with some, Gen Alpha baseball fans, feel free to remind them that Darren's ERA plus of 167 is better than that of two-time Cy Young winner Jacob deGrom, whose 156 ERA plus is fourth best all-time, and better than three-time Cy Young winner and former MVP Clayton Kershaw, who's fifth best all-time with an ERA plus of 155. So again, smaller sample size, I get it, but that ERA plus and career ERA of Darren O'Day is certainly impressive. Now, looking at these stats, I'll just say it now, before you bite my head off and say, he said he was better than Nolan Ryan and Cy Young, and better than Jacob deGrom, and better than Clayton Kershaw, and relax. I am not saying that Darren is better. Those guys are Hall of Famers. Maybe not Craig. I think Craig will get in, but I'm just saying I understand it is a small sample size. Again, to beat a dead horse. But in that small sample size, Darren O'Day put up very, very impressive numbers. Now, from a Hall of Fame perspective, I'll just say it, I don't see his stats getting him in. Although from kind of a Moneyball analytic perspective, it's clear that Darren had a great career. And although he pitched in a limited role as a bullpen guy during his career, he made the most of it. He played his part well, so much so that his stats, again, while I don't think they're going to get him in the Hall of Fame, are certainly worth recognition and good enough to stand head-to-head with some Hall of Famers and current players that might get in the Hall of Fame. So I'll admit, when my friend Pete Turner first suggested I do an episode about Darren, I had some doubts. I was like, really? Darren O'Day? You think he's got a Hall of Fame case? But got to say, studying his stats in depth, while I ultimately don't think his stats are going to get Darren into Cooperstown, I have a lot of respect for the stats he put up, and I think he had a good enough career to at least warrant a conversation and have an episode dedicated to him. So that's what I did. We got an episode dedicated to Darren O'Day. What about hardware? Did Darren earn any awards such that a Cooperstown plaque might be on his future? Unfortunately, no. Darren had one All-Star selection in 2015 as a member of the Baltimore Orioles, but he didn't get an opportunity to pitch in that game. Although I will say in 2017, Darren was named the recipient of the Bob Feller Act of Valor Award for his work with the United States military. Both of these are very impressive, but there's just a lot of other pitchers out there with multiple All-Star appearances, not just one, but multiple Cy Young Awards that aren't in the Hall of Fame, probably won't get in the Hall of Fame, so it's fair to say Darren's hardware is not going to get him in the Hall of Fame. What about the fame factor? Finally, in terms of this, nebulous fame factor, going into the mystic, as I like to say, Darren was a good pitcher. He put up good stats, especially when you sort of overlook him as, he's got a bullpen guy. No, you look at his stats, they were really impressive. Look, in the small niche community of baseball front office guys and statistical, analytic guys whose job it is to analyze bullpen pitchers, Darren's well known amongst that community, as well as other players who may have recognized, hey, this guy's tough to get a hit off. He's a good pitcher. But look, with all due respect, it's fair to say that, Darren really doesn't have the fame factor. In his peak years were the 2010s, and during that period, there's just a lot of other position players and pitchers that I would have considered the face of baseball. Off the top of my head, like Mike Trout, Altuve, Mookie, Harper, Josh Hamilton, Miggy, Miguel Cabrera, Joey Votto, Buster Posey, Clayton Kershaw, Cliff Lee, just to name a few off the top of my head. So again, with all due respect, Darren had a great career. I don't think he has the stats to get in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he has the hardware. And I think just on name recognition alone, he's not someone that you automatically hear the name and think, yeah, that guy's Hall of Famer, like Nolan Ryan or Koufax or Gibson. So, again, in short, had a great baseball career, and now he's having a great career as an announcer. But I ultimately don't think Darren has the stats, hardware, or the fame factor necessary to warrant induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for my next episode. I'm going to be interviewing attorney Paul Lesko. He calls himself the hobby lawyer because he handles cases involving baseball cards, memorabilia, and other collectibles. Paul is super friendly, fun, and very knowledgeable on issues related to the sports memorabilia industry. So if you're a listener that's into baseball cards, autographs, memorabilia, you definitely want to check out this episode and hear Paul discuss some of the interesting legal issues that arise in the hobby. He talked about things I didn't even know were a thing. So you definitely want to hear this. You want to hear some of the legal issues and some of the things you got to look out for if you're into collecting baseball cards, autographs, and other types of memorabilia. So definitely stay tuned for that next episode. And hey, remember, when life gets you down, stop what you're doing and watch a baseball game.